Welcome everyone. We are so glad to see you today. Welcome to Just the Facts, ma'am. I am Tracy Lawrence, one of your hosts for today, and Jane Babcock is my partner. Hi, Jane. How are you?
Hey, everybody, doing good. Nice to see you, Tracy.
Ah, yes. Nice to be seen. Okay. Everyone that's out there, we are so glad that you took time out of your day to log in and join us. Today's episode is full of information that's going to be helpful to those of you that are veterans, to those of you that love veterans. It is going to be a fabulous show. A whole bunch of crucial information for everyone. If you know a veteran or you have a family member that's a veteran, or you know someone that loves a veteran or has a family member that loves a veteran, please share, send them a text, ask them to log on to join us today. And if they can't get to us right now, this this episode will be available on demand at o4v.tv. ops4vet.tv. That's the letter O, the number 4, the letter V dot TV. All right, Miss James, what do you have for us today? Because we use the word crucial, so it must be good. What do you have for us today?
Well, today it's all about those who love us, supported us, often became our caregivers, and then unfortunately we passed away. So, what's there for them as far as financial safety net and the benefits that they've earned by taking good care of us?
Well, let's talk about those survivors that take good care of us. We appreciate that. It's not easy. It's not easy to be a caregiver. You almost need a calling for that, right? You definitely need a special anointing for that. So
Yeah.
so so talk to us about it. What do we
Well,
have?
VA actually recognizes not only marital spouses, but in states where cohabitation allows for an automatic acceptance as a married couple, say at 7 years. Each state has different laws, but in some states, 7 years of living together and holding yourself out in public as a married couple or a spouse to, partner of, can be recognized as a dependent and can be recognized as a survivor eligible for benefits. Also, dependent children, children under the age of 18, obviously, children between 18 and 23 who are still in school and not married, and children that are special needs. If they were disabled prior to their 18th birthday and are classified as a helpless adult, say receiving SSI because they're not able to maintain full time employment and go out and live and function on their own, they're eligible for survivor benefits.
It's sounding good so far. Sounding good so far.
And the unique exception to this rule in the VA is parents. If
Okay.
parents of a veteran are living below poverty, or those who raised that person, say they went and lived with their grandparents their entire life, and if that grandparent or parents are living below poverty, they may be eligible for some supplemental income. They aren't eligible for the full blown 1653 a month of DIC, but anywhere from 5 to 500 and some dollars a month,
Okay.
depending
So
on their income.
okay, people. I love numbers, right? And so far at 16. Did you say 1653?
Yes, if a veteran passes away and his death is in any way related to his military service, obviously, ischemic heart disease, Agent Orange, and dies of a massive heart attack from coronary artery disease or any of the other heart problems that fall under ischemic, then that spouse is entitled to 1653 and some change per month
How for how long?
until their whole life, potentially. if they're, say it's a younger couple, say it's a burn pit situation and the veteran dies of one of the respiratory cancers. Maybe she has kids at home, maybe she doesn't. Well, she's entitled to the 1653 plus dependent pay if she has dependents. And if she remarries before her 55th birthday, regrettably, that would stop her dependent indemnity compensation, her TRICARE, her home loan eligibility,
Oh,
and
I
the
see.
supportive benefits. But if she remarries after she's 55, she would keep those benefits.
My goodness. Okay, and the name of that benefit is the surviving spouse benefit, and then the surviving dependents benefit.
Yes, and yes and no. It's called Dependent Indemnity Compensation, DIC. I
Okay.
tell people just think of it as death compensation. If the veteran's death was caused by or contributed to by his service, injuries, or illnesses. Example, I had a veteran die in a nursing home from pneumonia. And at first, that's all they put on the death certificate. Well, 10 years later, in a conversation with the spouse, the widow of the veteran, I found out that he'd had uncontrolled type 2 diabetes due to Agent Orange. He had neuropathy, severe neuropathy. He couldn't get up and walk to participate in the recovery or the battle to fight the pneumonia.
Oh. Hmm.
And so I was able to go to the coroner with the medical records and say, would he have likely survived this pneumonia if he'd been able to participate in his own treatment program, especially early on? And he
Hmm.
goes, well, yeah, most people don't die in their 50s of pneumonia unless they're like traumatic situation where they've got other things going on. And I said, well, yeah, he had uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. No matter how much medications they get, insulin, anything like that, they could not keep it under control with him. And he had some kidney issues already, nephropathy starting, which is a side effect of type 2. And he had some mild retinopathy, which is a vision issue. But he also had neuropathy up past his knees. So he couldn't get up and walk the halls or do anything else to try and battle the disease.
Okay, so
So they said,
when you
yeah.
when you find out stuff like this 10 years after the fact, then what?
Then we went ahead and presented. The coroner had to petition the court to change the medical record. In our state, the first year they can change it, no problem. After a year, you have to go through this petition. So we did that. But we had already filed our intent. So by the time we got the petition paperwork and we sent it down to VA and they backdated it, it took us almost 10 months to do this. She got 10 months of back pay plus continued on.
Okay, okay. All right. Everyone out there, if you have any questions for Jane, because it's just the facts around here, just the facts. Send us a note in the chat. Just put us one there to say hello. Send us your name and the state that you are watching from, so that we can say hellos to you. Okay.
Yes.
Um, Go ahead, Miss Jane.
Well, DIC is a unique compensation. It is meant for the surviving spouse and or surviving dependents. That's why they call it dependent indemnity compensation. Okay. So there's very unique rules. There's 1 year, 5 year, 8 year, and 10 year rules that apply that change eligibility levels. A spouse to receive DIC needs to have been married to the veteran for a year. Unfortunately, it has happened in the past that people have married just for the convenience of hoping to protect the other person by burying them within a few days, few months of death, knowing perfectly well that they're going to pass away.
Oh, I see.
So the VA looks at it and says, okay, you need to have been married for a year, unless it's a traumatic situation. It's that's where the event comes along, and they have to look at it and adjudicate it. They can award, but they will go through an adjudication process, and Generally speaking, the VA is not real friendly if the marriage is less than a year old. But again, were you cohabitating for years beforehand? Was it understood in public that you were a committed couple that intended to remain so throughout your life? So,
Does the person have to be
again,
does the person have to be married at the time of the veteran service, or can the person tell me how does that work?
okay, it's strictly the date of the marriage. They may have served 40 years before you got married. They gotten out of the service 40 years before you got married. It's the time period before death
I see.
and the
Okay.
relationship before death. So that's where things kind of can be a little bit of a battle, because when the VA first gets it and they go, oh, well, you've only been married for 6 months. Oh, but you were living together for 12 years? Or you're a female and you had a child, even if you never married, but you had a child by that person, DIC may come into play, especially for that child. So there's all these, it's like the government, everything in the government. It's like a tax form. Nothing is ever straightforward and uncomplicated. There's no such thing as an easy form. So, so
Okay.
that's where having those conversations with a fully accredited VSO representative is so important. They work for your county, your state, your veterans organization. They want to win your benefit for you because their paycheck may not count on it winning, but they want to make sure you get your benefit because that's part of their job. And they're paid by your tax dollars. So, they do a good job, they get the pat on the back. They don't do a good job, you can report them to the VA and they might lose their job. You can report them to the county board or the county executive and they may lose their job. So CVSOs generally are veterans themselves. So they're very much looking out for the family.
Well,
Oh,
we
yeah.
love VSOs around here, right, everyone? We love VSOs. Get to know your VSO, build a relationship. We say that every episode. We're very serious about it. We encourage you to do that. Introduce your family to your VSO. I'm just saying.
Yep. Definitely. I used to encourage my veterans, especially the first time they came in to see me, please bring your spouse or your adult child. You're an older veteran and you may be going into assisted living or having some memory issues or whatever. Bring that adult child because they're going to ask more questions and they're going to be able to help you remember. A lot of times you meet with somebody for an hour or two and it's like, okay, they said something about this, but I don't remember exactly what. Okay. So the next thing in the DIC is the 5-year rule. If a veteran leaves the military service and he's rated 100% disabled and remains so for 5 years, that spouse is entitled to DIC even if it doesn't have anything to do with their military service. They get killed in a plane crash.
Okay.
If they left the military with a 100% rating, that 5-year period, that spouse is automatically entitled to DIC and or child or parent or whoever is eligible for that.
What's the 5-year period? Is it the 5-year period of the 100% rating?
Yes, but it has to be immediate from service. So 5 years from the
I
day
see.
they left service, they have to have been 100% for that whole time.
Understood.
Okay. Now, 8 years. Veteran has been out of service 25 years, gets his 100% rating. 8 years later, still married to the same spouse. They've been married for 10 years, and that veteran passes away. And that's enhanced DIC. That spouse, if it's service related, that spouse is going to be entitled to DIC plus an additional $350 a month. Now, say the veteran's out of service for 15 years, gets his 100% rating. 3 years later, he gets married. 10 years, or excuse me, 10 years later, so now he's been married for 10, that spouse is again entitled to DIC and the enhancement, even if they've only been married for 3 of those 10 years.
Okay.
And she's entitled to DIC again, plane crash, nothing to do with military service. So at 8 years, the spouse that's been married to him the entire 8 years is entitled to enhanced DIC. At 10 years, the spouse that's been married more than 1 year but less than 8 is entitled to DIC with enhancement.
My goodness. Okay, people.
So, yeah. So, all these little quirky things make a difference. There is standard DIC, there is enhanced DIC, and like compensation, there are potential add-on benefits. A spouse, say she or he is up into their 70s or 80s, and now they're looking at assisted living, or maybe they need some in-home care services, or they simply just can't get out of their own house. They can't drive, they can't ambulate very well, so they're not able to get out and about, take themselves to the doctor, ride the city bus, or things like that. That's called housebound. That's $190 more that gets added on. Well, now their ability to do things for themselves has gotten worse, and they're needing help with dressing, bathing, medication monitoring if they're having memory issues, things of that nature, what we call daily tasks of living.
Mm-hmm.
That 190 moves up to aid and attendance, which is $350 instead of the 190.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so there's all sorts of little things that can add on.
And those benefits are to help the veteran to have outside care come and assist, right?
Yes, outside care, assisted living. You can get a dependent. Say your niece is the one coming in and helping with these things.
Mm-hmm.
They fill out a form stating that they're working so many hours doing these things for you. You have to have a medical form that says this is the medical reasons why this person needs housebound or aid and attendance. And you could be paying them or not paying them, but sometimes you should be paying them. But sometimes family takes care of each other.
We have a question in the chat. Is now a good time, Jane?
Sure. What's up?
Okay. All right. So, hi out there. We see you. Thank you for your question. It says, how is the DIC amount determined, and what's the DIC monthly amount minimum and maximum? And then, do I have to pay taxes on it?
Okay. The minimum and maximum are simply determined by what status you are. If you are a parent or a child, dependent child, there's lesser amounts of money. A dependent parent, one who's living below certain amounts, I believe it's pretty close to $26,000 a year.
Okay.
Don't make me stick to that number, but I think that's the number. Then they might receive $5 a month. But as that money is decreased, if they're single and maybe they're living on, I don't know, $10,000 a year, they might be eligible for a couple $100 a month. Okay? But a surviving spouse is entitled to $1,653. There is no waiver of the amount of DIC until you start adding on housebound, aid and attendance, those kind of things that can be added on top of. There is also a 2-year transition when there are dependent children in the house. And that's an additional $350 on top of the DIC plus dependent pays for the first 2 years because of usually the financial situation is so upside down. So basic DIC for a surviving spouse is $1,653. And then the add-ons come into play.
1653. I heard that number earlier in this episode, and it's starting to stick now. Is that money taxable?
No.
What did you say?
No.
Girl, we love a big fat no.
Yes.
We love a big fat no. Okay, people. Yeah, married veterans or veterans that are living in committed relationships, please, please, please introduce your loved one to your VSO. You know,
Yes.
we're not immortal, right? And when our time comes, um, you all have the power to still be showing love and affection to the people in your family. And it's very cool. It's very cool.
And people often say living together at the time of the death. Well, what if the veteran is in a nursing home? What if the veteran is in jail?
Hmm.
Separation at no fault of your own, but still legally married, or having been in a relationship that the state sees, like cohabitation, that meets the standard of marriage, you're still entitled to these benefits. In fact, while that veteran is in prison, say, then usually what happens if they're in jail for more than 60 days, maybe 90, 60, I believe it is, then they reduce their compensation, say they may be 40%. Well, now they're only going to receive 10% pay. The spouse in the community or the one who's taking care of the dependent children can apply to receive the difference.
Mm.
So that other 30% of pay
Hmm.
could go to the community. It's called an apportionment. But in this case, even though that veteran is in prison, say for 12 years, but dies of something service related, whether it's direct cause, or contributed to by their service stuff, that spouse in the community, or that child in the community, or that cohabitant that meets the state requirements and was held out as a spouse can receive DIC. So it doesn't always have to be you have to be living in the same address. So there's all these little quirks that if people don't know how to file it, how to explain it, how to write it on the forms so that the VA understands, oh yeah, but his address is, San Quentin for the last 12 years, and you're saying you live in Connecticut.
This might be a good time to talk about because we always at the end of the show deal with how do people contact you or find you on LinkedIn. Did you want to share that now? Or did you want to try to share that later?
Sure. If you go to LinkedIn and you do Jane Babcock, you're going to find me. I'm usually the first one that pops up because I'm the most active Jane Babcock out there. So usually I'm going to pop up. It's real easy. Jane Babcock, Veterans Benefits Educator. Everything I do is as a volunteer. I am fully and completely retired, over the age of 65 by some time. But I will send you the presumptive list of exposure things. We're going to cover that in a little bit. I will send you the information of where to go to a link, and it'll connect you to the VA about DIC. There's also an article I wrote about wartime pension and things like that, so you can learn if you're eligible for these benefits and what your veteran may be currently eligible for. Um, just last fall, I met a veteran at a conference. He and his wife were there, and he was battling his second Agent Orange cancer. He'd never filed with VA. And when I told them, oh, you need to file because it means $4,000 a month while you're in active cancer,
Wow.
tax-free $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
And if that 100% is permanent, your family's entitled to CHAMP VA. And if you pass away from it, your spouse keeps the CHAMP VA and they keep the home loan. And depending on your state, in my state, permanent total at 100%, you receive property tax reimbursement. So
Oh, wait.
every veteran needs to sit down with a VSO rep and know what they're eligible for now, or God forbid, what they will become eligible for in the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish a terminal illness on anybody, but if it happens, you need to know so you know what to apply. Okay, so we talked about all the different things between being able to get DIC even when it's non-service connected, being able to get DIC with enhanced, and if you are a DIC recipient, you keep CHAMP VA, which is a civilian health insurance program through the VA. So if you're over 65, you pay for your Medicare, but you don't have to buy a supplement because the CHAMP VA at 65 becomes your supplement. And at that point, you pretty much shouldn't have any medical bills.
Yes,
And
that
yeah,
part.
so and so it's good things. Uh, Now, I mentioned the fact that some spouses will lose their benefit at the age of 55 if they remarry.
You did.
But but if that marriage ends, whether divorce or death, that spouse can go back on the benefit.
What?
Yes. There's probably, I don't know, 500,000 or more widows out there who lost their veteran early in life, remarried, lost the benefit, and have no idea that now that they're single again and trying to survive on one Social Security check and maybe a tiny little pension, that they can go back and apply to put back on DIC and get their CHAMP VA back.
But what? It doesn't matter if the veteran remarried.
No, the veteran's deceased in order to get
Okay.
DIC.
All right. So he's deceased or she's deceased, whichever. The surviving spouse remarried, was remarried for a period of time, and then that marriage
Has ended.
ends, and then they can go back and reapply.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
That alone that makes this whole episode incredible.
Yep. And
People.
I actually had somebody ask me, why does the spouse get anything?
Hmm.
Well, odds are if the veteran, especially if they were seriously ill from chemical exposure in service or they fought in combat and they have PTSD issues and stuff like that, unfortunately, there's probably been a situation where that veteran didn't earn the same level of income as other veterans in the same career field and things like that. That veteran may have missed more time at work due to cancer related to service or due to ALS. ALS is a presumptive for all active duty military, anybody over 90 days. So, ALS, you're going to get a diagnosis and be gone within a year, or you're going to spend 10 years, most of which is going to be pretty miserable, slowly dying. And that means your spouse is going to miss a lot of time at work. And, you know, I met a woman that was trying to take care of her dying husband and still work full time because she was trying to keep insurance. And I was like, wait a minute, he's 100%. You've been on CHAMP VA. And she was like, what's that? I said, oh, yeah, yoy. When the VA sent him a letter saying he's 100% permanent and total, they need to keep reading. A page or so later, it says, if you have dependents, they are eligible for CHAMP VA. And this is the form you need to send in to get on CHAMP VA. But he had never even put her on his claim because he never read the letter to add a dependent and or put her on CHAMP VA.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, again, that's a reason to work with a VSO because they want to get that dependent pay on you and they want to get that CHAMP VA going. And if your state gives you property tax credit, they want to do it.
We like that. We
Yes.
like that very much.
Okay. So we covered DIC pretty much. Yeah.
Let me just jump in and remind people that benefits are not. I don't want you to think benefits are a drain on our economy of any sort. They are absolutely fuel to the economy. When a veteran who has served the country actually connects with their VSO, becomes aware of all of the benefits that they are due, that the family is due, and they file these claims for the benefits, that money comes into your local economy. It comes into the pharmacies near you. It's coming into the places where you buy over the counter meds. Where the person that's caregiver, goes on their respite time, right? There, those dollars matter. So if you live in a part of the country where having some more cash flow would really help not just you and your family, but the people around you, um, veterans need to apply for their benefits for themselves, for their families, for their communities. It fuels the economy. Place
Yeah.
the demand on the system. Place the demand on the system. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm off my soapbox. I'm done. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And remember, if you file for your VA disability, even if you're making $500,000 a year and you get a 0% rating for hearing loss, in other words, very mild hearing loss, not enough that you need hearing aids and stuff like that, you're going to have VA healthcare access. If you're rated at 50% or greater, you're not going to pay the copays in the VA. Even if you're paying copays, say you're on an inhaler at $120 a month, in the VA, that inhaler is going to be $18 or less. Yes. And if you go to the emergency room because you fractured your elbow, then that's going to cost you $50. You don't actually pay the emergency room. You tell the VA, I'm enrolled in VA healthcare. Here's my VA card. Charge the VA.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
I'm in VA healthcare. If I were to go to an emergency room because I was in crisis, say I was suicidal, or I was seriously considering killing somebody else, the VA can pay for my emergency room. And if the doctor says I'm such a threat to myself or others that I need to be hospitalized, and the VA an hour and a half away says, well, we don't have a bed for her, or I'm in a really crisis situation where they don't even feel it's safe for me to go an hour and a half away and they do have a bed available, the VA will pay for me to stay in that hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Up to 30 days. And then VA reviews and says, nope, it's still our fault. We still don't have a bed available. Continue to stay there if the doctors feel that I need to stay there. I've had a complete breakdown or something. So, community care. It's really expanding in the VA, and I really see it expanding further, having listened to Secretary Collins talk about the number of people. They're already expecting 50,000 staff members to have left VA by this fall through either layoffs or early retirements or things like that. And on top of that, they're looking to get rid of another 30,000. So I see what's going to happen is community care, a lot more referrals to have the outside doctors and then paid by the VA.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we have a question in the chat, Jane. Let me ask that. It says, do 100% rated veterans get free dental and vehicle tag relief, and they never pay for tags or plates?
That's a state benefit because remember, licenses are run by your state. Okay. So depending on the state you live in, our state, we get free hunting licenses and free fishing licenses and all sorts of other things. We even have an additional 4 years of education beyond our federal GI Bill and beyond And that includes transferring it to our children if we're rated 30% or greater. So again, your local county, state, or veteran organization accredited VSOs will make sure you're going to get the benefits you're entitled to.
Okay, that's a state question. Your VSO should be able to help you with that wherever you are. Do your research on that. Do your research on what additional benefits your state makes available, and place a demand on those as well.
Now, the questioner did ask about dental. Veterans who are rated 100% permanent and total. In other words, if you're temporary 100% because maybe you're going through cancer due to your service chemical exposures, until it's made permanent and total, you're not going to receive dental unless your teeth are affected by any service-connected medicines. One of my girls, she was taking a medication that was actually making her gums draw back. It was for service that she was taking the medicine. And because it was service connected via the medicine, she received dental care through the VA. Or if it's a veteran whose teeth are really so bad that they're not taking in nutrition, or they're having reoccurring infections and everything else, the VA dental will at least get that person to the point where, if it's just a matter of pulling a couple teeth, or whether it's having to take out all the teeth or things like that, to get them back to a state where they can take in proper nutrition and things like that. Because after all, if you're trying to keep a person happy, healthy, and alive, and their bad teeth are preventing them from being healthy, the VA can treat them. Okay, I think we've lost Tracy, but I'm pretty sure it was for a pretty good reason. So she's had something come up, and we were really at the point where we're going to talk about some other things. Okay, the other benefit for surviving spouses, children, and so that's called wartime non-service connected pension. The non-service connected pension gets kind of confusing for people, but basically it means that your income minus your out-of-pocket medical, like health insurance premiums, pharmacy bills, dental bills, vision bills, all that kind of stuff, is driving your income below poverty, or in the case of a veteran, 130% of poverty, surviving spouse, poverty level. There is a pension program. You take the income, subtract off the medical expenses, say this is the living income, and it's this much below either poverty or 130% of poverty. So we're going to supplement it with this much more money. I had veteran couples that received $35. And when there's aid and attendance for either the veteran or the spouse, over $2,000. So if you're receiving, say, 10, 20% in compensation, but your income is so low, it might be time to look at that pension program if the veteran served at least one day of federal duty during a wartime. Then maybe it's time to switch over to the pension. They won't look at the compensation you receive because that's going to disappear. So maybe you were getting a couple hundred in pension or compensation, but you're eligible for 800 through pension. Switch to the pension. And if you're in the VA healthcare system, if you're on pension, all your care, pharmacy, all that stuff is free. And if, say, you did have to go to the dentist this year and get dentures, next year you get to take that off as a medical expense, and that it raises your pension up higher. Okay? Glasses, hearing aids, all that stuff you're going to get through the VA for free. But services that the VA can't provide you and you have to pay out of pocket, those will increase your benefit later in pension. Pension has a unique feature in that you can look backwards 1 year for what you already paid and say, okay, here was my income. Now I paid off my medical expenses. This is what I lived off of last year. Now the VA is going to base your pension on that. or your health has taken a turn, or your spouse's health took a turn, and they've suddenly had to go into assisted living, or they're suddenly paying for huge in-home care bills, or you lost a spouse. We get to take off that funeral expense, or we get to take off the new assisted living bill and say, oh, over the next year you have a $50,000 income, but you're going to spend out $40,000 in in-home care. You're trying to live off of 10. We'll start supplementing your income now. The only other requirement for pension, 1 day of active duty during a federal wartime period, income below certain measurements, HUD, national HUD poverty level, and assets. Not counting your home, your car, your personal belongings, or 1 acre of land. So if you own a farm, they're going to count the rest of the acres as asset. But if your liquid assets with your leftover living income is less than $159,000, they're going to start supplementing your income. So the idea is not to preserve your savings and your liquid assets, but to slow down the spend out rate. Okay? So if your spouse is in assisted living, even with the full pension, you're still going to be spending some money out. But at least it's going to take you a lot longer to lose it all or to go to Medicaid. So pension is the other benefit. Surviving spouses and or dependent children, especially helpless children that are adults, can receive some pension funds. Now, a lot of this is going to come from presumptive illnesses. We have veterans out there, like that veteran I mentioned earlier. He was on his second Vietnam cancer. That is because of the carcinogens and other chemicals he was exposed to where he served. So if you're a burn pit guy, if you're Vietnam, Thailand, demilitarized zone, part of the demilitarized zone in Korea during that time, guys that serve on Entuak Atoll, they stored the stuff there. And a lot of it got into the ground because the barrels broke loose on the bottom and stuff. So there's a whole bunch of places. There are a couple sites here in the U.S. where they stored and or tested it, if you were involved with that. If you are part of, there's a reserve unit in California, and I suddenly can't think of it. They repaired the planes, the C-123s that flew the stuff and sprayed it. They, for up to 10 years after Vietnam ended, they were still working on those planes that had Agent Orange in all the crevices and stuff. If you can show you were a part of that unit and you have one of the Agent Orange things, you can file a claim for up to 10 years to 1985 after Vietnam, 10 years after Vietnam. And unfortunately, there's a lot of widows out there whose veterans served in Thailand but didn't serve on the airstrip. And up until the PACT Act, they would not recognize anything but people that had served on the Air Force bases in Thailand if they could show they were on the airstrip. But you and I both know, when we were in service, if the mess hall sergeant said we've got a problem with rats because of the tall vegetation around our building, they were borrowing it from the guys on the airstrip and spraying it around the mess hall. They were spraying it around the barracks and things like this to keep down the animal situation. So now the VA has seen enough cases and fought enough battles with veterans that we're able to prove that it was being used. Either they sprayed it or they got buddy statements from people who sprayed it. So now anyone anywhere on the Thailand Air Force bases and or Royal Thai Air Force bases can file. And if your veteran filed 10 years ago and Lord help him, he passed 8 years ago, if you're the surviving spouse, you should be going back and talking to the VA about DIC. And the VA would more than likely look at the claim and say, oh, all the evidence was there. It's our fault that we didn't have the regulation that allowed him to receive his benefit at that time. We owe him 10 years or 2 years worth of benefit. the surviving spouse, and or if the surviving spouse is deceased, the children may be eligible for the money that was owed through the line of inheritance. I had a young lady come in my office and say, hey, some guy called me, said he was with the VA and he knew my dad's social security number and all this other stuff, and it was told me what my birth date was and all that. I hung up on him. So I called the office or the VA and I said, okay, she's here with me. She got on the speakerphone and said, yes, you have permission to talk to Jane while we're online. And they said, oh, well, we've been cleaning up some old files and we realized that we owed your dad $9,000. So each she and her two brothers got $3,000. So presumptive illnesses, especially for Agent Orange, 38 cancers and a whole bunch of neurologicals. And they've added things to it in just the last 18 months. With the PAC Act, they added MGUS and, oh Lord, what was the other one? Can't think of it. Not enough space in that brain. But in January, they added hypertension, high blood pressure. All those veterans out there, and I know I had a couple of them that filed for strokes and or their spouses filed for DIC under the rule of strokes, and the VA denied them because strokes weren't on the list. But strokes can be proven as secondary to high blood pressure. So if that veteran passed or if that veteran is sick with high blood pressure, they need to file a claim with the VA. And if that veteran filed back in 2010 was denied, there's back pay because NEMR law applies. Agent Orange's Vietnam Agent Orange herbicides are the only thing that NEMR law attaches to. So go see your county veteran service officer. Go see your state veteran service officer. Go see the DAV, VFW, American Legion, all the other great organizations out there. The only thing you need to ask is, are you accredited and do you charge? Because A, accredited VSOs are not allowed to charge. Otherwise, VA takes away the accreditation. And so it should always be an answer of no, we don't charge. They have a paycheck. They go to training every year. They learn the latest and greatest. In fact, this week, right now, the National County Veteran Service Officers Association is having their national training conference in Kentucky. So if you're in Kentucky, that's where they're meeting this year to do their training. Great organization, great people. So I am looking, and I don't know if I see any more questions because I'm not seeing the full list of comments. So what I'm going to ask, oh, here we go. No. I guess that's it for questions. Anybody out there have a quick question for me? If not, I think I'll round this up with, we covered dependent indemnity compensation. And that's my email. You can contact me through there, or you can contact me through talk.veteran@gmail. Either one of those works. You can look me up on LinkedIn, send me a connection request, or just look at my profile, because then if you do, I'm going to send you a connection request because I want to get those tools out there, those links and attachments that you could share with others. I do what I do only because I know what I know, and I want to share it with the rest of the family. God bless you all, and thank you for your service. Reach out to me. I'm here for anybody that has questions.
You see him? He's just as dead as we are. Now, you listen to me, youngster. Someday you're going to wake up fighting on a beachhead. You pray to God some guy doesn't get killed because of your foolishness. You join the Marine Corps, Owens. We don't deal in pity and sympathy.
I try.
Try. We don't try in this Marine Corps. We either do or we don't. We don't straddle any fences. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Every time you make one of these little mistakes of yours, you're going to turn around, and I'll be standing right there.
needing money or anything, you know. Man, I got over like a fat rat when I got out, man. I got my school money coming from the government once a month. I got my veterans check coming once a month. I got my 50% medical check coming to me for the rest of my life.